to heat up your frozen dinners, grab your TV tray, and settle in for another episode of the Plus Platoon, your podcast for all things Disney Plus, brought to you by Disney Plus fans. Watch along with us every week as we cover all the new, the old, the good, and the bad on Disney Plus. So put down that remote, don't touch that dial, and welcome your fabulous Plus Platoon host.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Plus Platoon. I almost jumped ahead of ourselves and said, welcome to the Muppet Show, because, you know, we've got a cast of characters on here. But we're the Plus Platoon. We are a Disney Plus fan podcast that gives honest, spoiler-filled reviews of movies and shows on Disney Plus. We look at new releases, coming attractions, and we'll even go back into the vault to revisit some of the classic Disney that's on the platform. Make sure you're subscribed and you will never miss a moment. Speaking of one of our biggest characters, Kate. How you doing this week?
I'm all right. How are you, brother?
It's been a week, but I'm not doing too bad.
It has. You are not the first person I've heard that from either. I feel like it's just kind of going around right now.
Well, we're in about the 14th week of January. So,
yep.
Next, we have our resident comedian, Pete.
Waka waka.
And of course, the class of the field, Steve.
Hi, everyone. And I'm just shaking my head, Pete. I've been dealing with that all week.
Yep. Yeah. Guys, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, share. That way you'll never miss any of the episodes we've got coming up. And we've got a couple fun ones. We're looking at some older stuff, some new stuff, and I think we may be even pulling out a diamond in the rough that we haven't touched in a while. But as I said, it's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights on the Plus Platoon tonight with the Muppet Show. We are talking about, of course, about the original run of the Muppet Show. Was filmed in London. And
I didn't know that.
Yes, and featured guest stars from every walk of life. Basically, if you were a popular actor or musician in that point in time, one of your biggest goals was to get on the Muppet Show. So,
is it like hosting SNL?
It was more fun.
Right, but like to get on the Muppet Show, was it like a coveted spot like hosting SNL?
Kind of, but you only got on once.
Oh, okay.
I don't believe there were any repeat guests.
Okay.
There were a couple, but not many.
Okay. Yeah. But so we watched 4 specific episodes at least just to try and get a feel for things. We watched the Vincent Price episode, the Elton John episode, the Rita Moreno episode, and the Mark Hamill Star Wars episode, because those were all episodes that we had seen before and thought they at least show a good light of the Muppet Show. So as we start talking about, one of the things that Muppets do great is their guest stars.
Everything.
Not quite. So, Pete, I'm going to start with you on this one. What works and doesn't work as far as how they utilize the guest stars in the show?
So I think that in general they utilize the guest stars pretty well. I think, well, for one thing, we picked 4 pretty good ones. I do think as the series went on, they got bigger of the time, bigger stars. If you look at the first season versus say season 3 and 4, the stars got bigger names. But I mean, Rita Moreno, Vincent Price were still, very famous, and that was first season. So they were famous people. But I think in terms of stars in their prime, I think that happened later on. With things like, Star Wars, I mean, that was a big deal to get not just Mark. It wasn't just like they had Mark Hamill on. They had Mark Hamill, C-3PO, R2-D2, and Chewbacca. So, I mean, that was like basically, George Lucas lending out his squad, right?
Yeah.
I think overall, I think they usually play to the guest's strengths. So if the person is a singer, like the Elton John show, if he's a singer, he sang like 4 songs in that episode. If they're, Rita Moreno's more of a dancer, so they had her do a couple dance performances. And Vincent Price was, he's more of an actor, I guess. So he wasn't real. I think he did sing one time, but it wasn't great singing.
They did.
Hang on. Oh my gosh, it's not I Get By With a Little Help from My Friends. It's
Yeah, it was a Beatles song, right?
Oh my gosh, and he's dressed up. He's not the vampire, but it's a happy song. It's not Bridge Over Troubled Water. It's oh shoot.
You've Got a Friend. It's
You
James
Got a
Taylor.
Friend.
That's right.
James Taylor's You
Yeah.
Got a Friend.
I was close.
It was the Rita. There was another episode they did a Beatles song, but
No.
So yeah, so I think they generally play to the strengths. I think overall, most of the ones we watched, sometimes you'll get a guest that like isn't quite sure what they're doing there. So they do have those episodes. But I think the 4 that we watched, the guests were very much into what was going on the show and were really enjoying it for the most part. If any seemed a little awkward, it was probably Elton John.
Mhm.
But he was probably like high at the time and just not
No, surely not Elton John.
surely not Elton John.
Yes, and stop calling me Shirley. I know, but
no, I thought I said that's, to me, that's one of the fun things. One of the things that makes the Muppets is having them interact with celebrities, whether they're big name celebrities, lesser known celebrities, whatever. I think that's a big part of the Muppets. But Steve, what do you think about how the guests were used in these episodes that we watched?
I think I like what you said of they played them to their strengths, and I think it works better when the guest star can play off of the Muppets, even though with it zany. I look at like Mark Hamill, who just went like all in with it, and I think that's really what helped make it a great episode. Rita Moreno, how she played off of them as well. I think that's where I remember watching this as a kid. I don't know if it was in reruns or first runs. Do you remember, Pete? Because I remember it was on like every week. So I remember seeing the Star Wars episode when I was a kid.
Yeah, I thought I was watching it during first runs, because I mean it was from what, like 77 to 81, 82, something.
Yeah.
So it would have been first run. So I remember
Yeah.
it was sort of it was a weekly thing. I think that's what they do best, is when the guest star can totally play off it. I mean, I think if we go back to the Muppet Christmas Carol, where Michael Caine just played it straight, but went all in with it, even though how zany it was to be acting across from a Muppet. So what would you say, Derek?
I would agree for the most part. I think there are times where the actors don't always know when they're doing if what they're doing is good. I would say, as far as the use of the guest star, to me, the weakest one was the Mark Hamill episode. Just because having seen him in some stuff fairly recently, him playing Mark Hamill, I think could have been done even bigger as far as the difference between he and Luke Skywalker. But I mean, and that's a little thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, can we talk about probably one of the best Muppet Show episodes ever with Rita Moreno in it? I mean,
Yeah, that was a great episode.
I mean, let's face it, this is the one that finished off her EGOT. She won the Emmy for this as guest star. Now,
did she really?
Now, trivia. What were her other 3 wins for? What was her
West Side
Oscars?
Story.
Her Oscars easy.
West Side Story. Yeah.
Yeah.
her Grammy.
West Side Story.
No,
I don't know.
her Grammy. She was on the Electric Company.
Oh,
growing up.
really?
Wow.
Yes. So a best children's recording. She won for the Electric Company. And her Tony is not West Side Story. Tony is an old show, is a Terrence
don't know.
McNally play called The Ritz. It's not a musical.
Oh, okay.
She won that in 75. So
Mhm.
this made her the third ever EGOT winner, of which now there's 19. The most recent being just wrapped it up.
Oh,
Elton John.
It was Elton John. Yes.
yes.
Yeah. He
Yeah,
just
because
got
he won for the Disney special, right?
Yeah, he just got an Emmy. Yeah.
So I think the guest stars are great, as I said, for the most part. I've probably watched, I was not around when these were in first run. Not that I would remember anyway. But I've probably watched 20 to 25 different episodes. And as a whole, they do utilize the guest stars. You can tell which guest stars are work and which ones don't by how much they're actually in the show.
Yeah.
The ones that don't work, you only see like once or twice. The ones that work and work with them up, it's like Mark Hamill and all those are in everything. And can we not talk about how Vincent Price was willing to do anything? Was willing to do anything for this and seemed to be having a blast. He was the one that you could see that sparkle in his eye of, oh my gosh, I'm having fun. So
Yeah.
anything
Well,
to add?
and thinking about him, it's like all he did for most of his career was having to do like horror or those type of movies, and was very, very typecast. And so being able to riff on that and fool around was probably a giant relief for him.
Yeah. Kate?
So I think Steve was the first person to say it, I think. And Steve nailed it, that you had to have a good guest star, they have to go all in. And I felt like read all of these. I'll be honest, I missed the Elton John one, but I watched a couple other episodes. Don Knotts, Carol Burnett, the ones that I thought would just make me laugh. And the only way that these shows work is if you go all in, is if you completely commit to interacting with a Muppet and just living. One of my favorite parts of Mark Hamill's episode is when he ran up behind the guy in the kilt who was singing, and then he goes, shh, and he just started like, it just worked. I think the Mark Hamill episode was one of my favorites because of just how much he committed.
I would agree with that.
I was actually kind of hoping that Chewie wouldn't make an appearance, and that Sweetums would be dressed up as Chewie is what I wanted to see, but that didn't happen. But I think that the guests are great, but they have to go all in, which I think is why some episodes didn't 100% work, because it takes a certain level of chaos and a certain, as I'm like puppeteering, and a certain level of idiocracy. You have to allow yourself
incredibly self-confident in yourself.
You have to be so self-confident and not be afraid to just be a complete idiot. That is why this works. Because the Muppets,
that's why this works. We're not afraid to be complete idiots.
It is why this works. But I think that's why I'm a good DJ, is because I am not afraid to be or do any of my jobs, is because I'm not afraid to make a fool of myself on stage. But I think this is also what makes the Muppets so timeless, is that they can go out have somebody make a fool of them, or they could go up and sing the ABCs, and we would be like, those were the best ABCs ever in the whole world ever. So
No,
yeah,
there's
I love
one version of the ABCs with Muppets that is the best ever.
Oh no.
Look up ABC's Kermit Cookie Monster.
Excellent.
Trust me, it is worth your, especially if you have any kind of a little kid, it is so worth your time.
Perfect.
But singing the ABCs brings us then to the musical numbers. And guys, I got to start off on this one because, again, I think, yes, we had Elton John. Yes, we had Vincent Price singing. Yes, they've had Bernadette Peters. You cannot top Rita Moreno and Animal doing Fever.
100%.
Like that is the best 2.5 minutes of the Muppet Show.
100%.
Full stop. And you can tell, and she has said, if you look at it, when he starts going into the longer drum riff at the end, you can see her break. You can see her nostrils flare, and it's that's where she went, I can't laugh at this. And it's just, and then the fact that she hits an animal, the what a woman. Is just, I challenge you to find a funnier 2.5 minute song ever. So
the Rita Moreno episode of those 4 anyways, and it wasn't the one I suggested. I don't remember who suggested that one, but okay, Derek, we'll give you credit. That was the most solid through and through, I thought.
Yeah, I would agree.
Like the most consistent, funny throughout the whole episode. All of them were good. All 4 of those were good picks. So,
but I mean, in musical numbers, yes, Elton John, but think there's the musical numbers with the Muppets. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. I still remember, it wasn't on one of the ones we watched, but the pigs on Harley singing I Get Around by the Beach Boys is funny. And there's always seems to be a Muppet only musical number somewhere in there. Of course, I mean, I'm not going to say the famous one from the first episode because I don't want that earworm.
Do, 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 do.
Okay.
I didn't do it.
Kate's on. Sorry, Kate, you just lost all speaking privileges for the evening. Just completely disabling her mic. She cannot talk because now it's not quite as needing to be in America that I've watched West Side Story 4 times this last week. But yeah, but the musical numbers on this are simply amazing. So, Kate, as our resident musical person.
Yeah, again, this is what is so brilliant about the puppetry of the Muppets. So I watched all the episodes. I was working on some stuff, sending some emails and stuff while I was doing them, while I was watching. And there was one song, and it was 2 Muppets that are not known. And it was when they sang, I've got you under my skin.
Yeah.
I was laughing out loud because who thought of that? Who thought of that brilliance? And then, like, at one point they pull the Muppet out, and it's just, so then the puppet is puppeteering the puppet. It just was brilliant. Listen, I just kind of feel like nobody does musical numbers like the Muppets. Yes, the earworm song is one of the most popular. I actually didn't know that was in the very first episode. That's kind of crazy because I feel like
it was originally on the old they did it on the old Steve Allen Your Show of Shows. They did it on, I think they did it on Ed Sullivan even, but
okay.
It was in there too.
But I don't even think, I would rather see the Muppets sing than the special guest star. I would rather see it. Although Vincent Price crushed You've Got a Friend.
God, that was so funny. And you're right, the Rita Moreno and Animal. Oh my God, Animal is one of my favorites. I just love the Muppets. I just love the Muppets. I love it. I think it's brilliant. Genius.
But what I would say to that is it's best if the guest sings with the Muppets because even the Elton John one, I thought the best song was "Don't Go Breaking My Heart."
Oh,
where he duetted with Piggy. I thought that was the most fun.
Eat your heart out, Kiki.
Yeah, eat your heart out, Kiki. Yeah.
Yep.
It was
I thought, I did like all of the songs in there. I like Elton John a lot, but that one I thought was the most fun just because it was him duetting with Piggy and her being kind of all over him and everything. So yeah. I mean, and then I think my favorite song, and I don't know if it was because of the puppets, I forget which episode it was in, but there was one with 3 like human looking Muppets, but one of them was Jim Henson.
Oh, it was in the Rita Moreno episode.
Yeah, it was the song about tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I just thought that song, I'm guessing they probably didn't write it. It was probably a song that already existed, but I just thought it was such a clever song. They used like a Muppet of Jim Henson with Jim Henson singing the song.
The song is called "I Want to Go Tomorrow."
Yeah. And and I wasn't sure if the other Muppets there were also Muppet actors.
I think it was Jim Henson, Frank Oz, and the other guy. There's
Goals?
one of the
David Goals. But I just got a real kick out of that. I even liked I think in the Mark Hamill episode they had Kermit singing about a pocket watch, and I don't know, the song didn't make much sense, but like just really, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's just nostalgia. I mean, this stuff is just good.
Yep, agreed.
Steve, what was your favorite?
Mine was like Kate's. You got me under my skin. Just cracked me up.
So
just
funny.
How just the visuals and it going on, like it's popping out and it pops out over here. Just hilarious. Also just the opening number to the Muppet Show. I mean,
and the
to me
evolution of the opening number.
Right. It's just, to me, it's like catchy. I mean, I growing up and watching it, you hear that, I guess, could go through and like instantly like recognize it. I also, like you said, the one with Animal and Rita Moreno, the playing back and forth and the building up was quite hilarious. I think you said it does it best when it's not necessarily that's the thing to do. I think that's the thing where the episode of Elton John fell down is he sings, but he wasn't really interacting. So,
and he only sang. He didn't try and do a skit or anything else.
Correct. Yeah. So those are my favorites. I agree with what everyone else said.
Okay. Now, the part that you either love or hate about the Muppets is the Muppet sense of humor. We've called it zany, crazy, off the wall, totally unexpected humor. Steve, thoughts on what works and what doesn't necessarily work about the Muppet humor?
I think what works, it's just absurd humor. Like I love Gonzo. It gets the wackiness of it.
When Gonzo came out as Darth Vader.
Yes. I don't remember his name, but the throwing of the fish guy, the Muppet, that always cracked me up as a kid.
New Zealand.
Yes.
New Zealand, yeah.
That, and then Fozzie, it's just the bad jokes. I mean, he was like the originator of like the dad jokes and the waka waka waka. I mean, like you said, it just goes over the top.
You have to appreciate dad jokes to appreciate Fozzie.
Yeah. The thing that caught me off guard in this one, because cracked me up, was looking at the evolution of Miss Piggy. Like when she came on in that first episode, I went, "Is that Miss Piggy? Is that?" I had to look it up because I wasn't sure if it was Miss Piggy. Like, was they using another pig? But yes.
I mean, hers is probably the Muppet. Her and Gonzo, but her especially, the Muppet that has evolved the most from the beginning. Although the original Kermit was the pre-Muppet Show Kermit was a little rough.
The
but
pre-Sesame Street Kermit.
yeah, pre-Sesame Street. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, guys, I love the Muppets. I have always loved. Okay, I love the good classic Muppets, and we won't talk about some of the '90s Muppets, but I love the old stuff. As I said, this has been no surprises. We've talked about this. The Muppets I most relate to are Statler and Waldorf, completely Statler and Waldorf, just because.
Big surprise.
You're shocked there, but just the comments of the heckling and to have them always have that end. I don't know if you guys stuck around for it, but at the end of the song, at the end, there's always a Statler and Waldorf tag.
Right.
So, and some of them are better than others, but some of them are just. And when they go heckling Fozzie back and forth, and we didn't really get to see that in any of these episodes, but some of those moments are just so funny. But to take the completely I mean, yes, a crocodile singing with Elton John and Crocodile Rock, is that cliche? Yes. Was it funny? Yes. So,
well, the fact that they did the na 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 was the part that made it like the writers knew where to find the funny.
I will say there are a couple different episodes where, again, if the guest star is not that great, the humor seems very, very forced.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't watch that in none of these 4 shows really had that for me. But there are some other episodes. For people saying they love the John Cleese episode, to me, it's terrible. And I love Monty Python humor. I love Muppets humor. That episode, it feels like they can't really get there's no middle ground for it. So, but for the most part, I mean, yeah, Muppet humor is my humor. Kate,
I think it kind of goes back to what Steve was saying earlier about the guest stars, is the things about the Muppets that make them so funny is they lean into their character. Fozzie leans into the fact that he tells terrible dad jokes. Animal leans into the fact that he is Animal. One of the funniest things, this is on the Muppet movie, is when somebody's like, Animal, what are you doing? And he goes, acting natural. That line will make me laugh every single time. It's Gonzo being Gonzo. It's Kermit trying to wrangle all of these jokers and literally just being like, oh! So it's that is what makes it
direct reference to the running gag in which one was literally running across the stage.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct. It's and the thing is, I think this is also what makes them so funny is I feel like we all know them. Like we all have someone in our life who is a Statler or a Waldorf or who is a Fozzie or all these things. So yeah, it's just there is something magical about the Muppets that transcends generations. I mean, I am in a different generation than you all, and I love the Muppets just as much as you do. That's how I know it's not a nostalgia thing for me, because I didn't grow up on watching it coming out live. But I have all of these on DVD. I have all of the Muppet shows on DVD. So it's just the Muppets wouldn't be the Muppets without their humor, if that makes sense. It wouldn't work without their humor.
Yeah, when they try to do a different, like the Muppets, I think it was just called the Muppets, right? I don't remember the television show where they tried to like parody The Office.
Oh yeah, that was terrible.
It was terrible, but it was partly terrible because they tried to do a different sense of humor than the Muppets were, and they very rarely in the show did Muppets humor.
Right.
Whereas the modern things that work the best, and even this most recent that we watched, the
Electric
Mayhem show, the best scenes in that were when they let the Muppets be the most
Muppets.
Muppety, and and as opposed to just having like these side plots that were just human characters interacting with each other, and it's like, we don't need that.
Yep.
Yeah, I really, watching this, I don't know how you all feel, but like watching this, it made me wish they would just try to do this, to like
The
let's
show
let's
again.
bring
Yeah.
let's bring the Muppets back again. I mean, not exactly the same show, but like let's do a variety. Let's try a Muppets variety show. Let's not try to do something, that a standard sitcom or whatever. Let's
Right.
just let the Muppets be the Muppets and see if it works, see if it gets people watching it.
And that leads us directly into our last question today. Who would be on a new similar to the original Muppet Show? Who would be your perfect guest star on that show? Kate, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna start with me.
You can pass if you need to.
No, I think it would be funny. I think Tom Hiddleston is very funny. I think Tom Hiddleston could do a good job at this. But that made me think, but I don't know if I actually want to see Tom Hiddleston or if I want to see Loki do, So then it made me think, I think it could be funny if you did a Marvel, if you had certain
Star Wars.
had Groot come in, had Star-Lord come in, had Drax. Oh my God. Can you imagine how funny that could be if you had Drax and Rocket or something? So I would like to see
Mantis and Drax.
Marvel.
Drax and
Yes.
Gonzo.
Oh my God, Mantis and Drax.
Drax and Gonzo, they're both blue. And how they could play off of that.
Do you understand how funny that could be? So I think that would be my answer, is a Marvel, kind of like how they did with Star Wars, a Marvel, but don't bring in like Captain America or Thor, like bring in Drax and Mantis and yeah. Anyway, Pete, what about you?
So I thought about this, and how we talked about like it's got to be like commitment to the bit, and I think like Ryan Gosling, because like in the Barbie movie, like he took a role that was kind of the female role, and he totally committed to that role. Didn't worry about that. He basically comes across as an a-hole for most of the movie, and just like it was so deadpan, but also so funny. I think, and I really like him in general. I think like that would be an interesting, to kind of do that, like play it straight, but take it, really dive into it. I think he would be entertaining. It's hard, as I said, the people that don't work on the Muppets would be people that take themselves too seriously. So the less serious they take themselves, so like someone like Tina Fey would be great, or some of the today comedians has said that don't take themselves too seriously. What about you, Steve? You got one?
I have two. First one would be Jack Black, because I think he would just go all in. And then Niecy
Oh
Nash.
my God, that would be so funny.
I think she would also just go all
Niecy
in.
Nash. Oh yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
So those are the two that came to my mind when seeing this. Like, who could go all in? And again, like you said, not be afraid to make a fool of yourself.
Yeah. And I will admit, when I first posed this question, Jack Black was my initial response. But I've got a actor who I think we've kind of seen this do it, and then an actor that I'm not sure I think would pull it off great, but it would have to be very specific. So the actor I think that could pull this off, and I think we've seen do it everywhere, I would love to see Tom Hanks on an episode.
Oh yeah, for sure he could do that.
I mean him in. I mean, we've seen it from him as Woody. I mean, it's just. But can you imagine a Morgan Freeman episode? Oh my gosh! Can you imagine him? No, the thing is, he can do humor. If it's that deadpan straight man, he would be, that deadpan straight man. he in Bruce Almighty is funny as God.
True, yeah.
He has those moments. It's that little, he plays it straight, but it's that little sly humor of even the in Shawshank Redemption, it's maybe because I'm Irish. Yeah, and just goes along, and it's a throwaway line, but it's just, I think he would be someone that's not a comedian that could pull it off. Because comedians, there's a lot of comedians I think could do it.
Right.
Okay. And okay, you're going Marvel. I'm going kind of Marvel, but from everything else I've seen him, Hugh Jackman. Because there's
he would totally do it. Yeah.
He could sing. He could, so I think there's a lot of options out there, but I think it would have to be, if they were going to reboot it, do it as a Disney Plus show, variety show.
Yeah.
25 minutes, do it there, because I don't think this would work on network. I really don't, because I don't think people would sit and watch it on network.
Yeah, no, it's well, as I said, I hope they keep trying with the Muppets. The Muppets will never be the biggest thing in the world because it's not necessarily appealing to the younger generation wholly. I mean, I think they've managed to get a few, viral things out there over the last 15 years.
Their Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right. So they can get some of that, but I know with my daughter, like, she likes the Muppets, but she doesn't love the Muppets. But yeah, I said it, not that I was the only one thinking it, but I said it first, right? I totally think let's stop fooling around with these sitcoms and let's see if we could do a genuine variety show with the Muppets and with a guest star, coming up with funny songs, gags. Don't worry about that it's old fashioned. Quite honestly, it was old fashioned in the late 70s doing the type of gags. Wasn't nearly as old fashioned as it is now, but
I think it'd sell. So
yeah.
Okay. So as we always do when we've watched representational portions of series like this or movies or anything like that, cups of pixie dust out of 5, and I'm going to do it as, if you've watched, I'm going to try and do it as the entire The Muppet Show, the original Muppet Show. What would you rate that in cups of pixie dust? Because
I'm going to give it
I think everyone on here has seen more than just these 4 episodes.
For sure, yeah.
Okay, so, Kate?
I'm going to give it a solid 4. Okay. And it only gets a 4 because it doesn't get a 5 because some of the episodes are slower than others, but it gets a solid 4.
Yeah, I think I got to give it, in general, a 4.5. I was also thinking 4, but I mean, it's honestly one of my go-tos on Disney Plus when I'm like, I don't know what I feel like watching. Because there's like 100 something episodes of this show. So, you can scroll through, and that's one thing I like about it too, is like scroll through and be like, oh, Steve Martin, that's got to be funny, and you can watch it. It's 20 minutes long. Yeah, that's actually one of the shows that doesn't work that well. But I'm just saying, like, you can go through and you see the names. I didn't watch it because I didn't want to be confused by it. But the one right after Mark Hamill is Christopher Reeve, and I was like, Christopher Reeve, and I almost watched it. Yeah, so I'm gonna give it a 4.5. There are some not great episodes in the mix. I'm sure there's episodes themselves that I would give, a 2.5 or a 3, but for the most part, they're mostly, 4 and higher. So I'm gonna give it a 4.5. Steve?
I'm matching up with Kate, and exactly for the same reason. A solid 4. There's some weaker episodes out there. I'd agree, around like the 2.5 area, but overall a strong 4. And Derek?
Yeah, I'm gonna go in the same ballpark. I'm gonna go with 3.5, just because honestly, I'm usually a little bit stingier with my ratings, but I don't think I am not a Muppet lover like Pete is. but
Really?
to that extent.
Eh,
Real, I will watch the good ones I really enjoy, but if it's a really slow one or really one that doesn't work, I really don't enjoy it that much. It's got to have more than 1 2-minute skit in order to make the episode good for me. So, and there are some of those that only have 1 or 2 2-minute skits that
yeah.
make me chuckle.
And I'm more forgiving of the modern Muppet stuff than you are. Not that I think much of it has been great, but I think I'm a little. I'm like, it's Muppets.
You're a lot more forgiving of the modern stuff than I am. So, but that gives it an overall rating of a 4 from us, which is one of our higher ratings. Like as a group, that's our highest rating since Imagineering Story and Pirates of the Caribbean last summer. So,
Wow.
So this, I mean, and I would argue this is the best thing we've watched since then. So,
yeah, there's been a lot of not great stuff the last 6 months.
Jump lately, yeah. Matter of fact, a lot more averages in the 2s than in the 3s, even. So, okay, next week will be our Valentine's show, and we're going to watch. I can't believe we haven't watched this in the 4 seasons yet. We're going to watch the quintessential animated Disney Valentine's movie, Lady and the Tramp. Because it has what has been argued as one of the most romantic scenes in all of cinema. The rest of it, we'll discuss next week how romantic it really is. But let's face it, the spaghetti and meatball scene is quintessential romance. So that's why we're tying it to Valentine's Day. But I will come out and say right now, it's not without its problems.
It all depends on how much mileage you get out of muzzling your women.
Woo!
Well,
There we are. There it is.
I do tend to like the mute button on Kate, but I mean, no, she can say whatever she wants, right, dear?
You mute me more than you do Kate, though. Come on.
Yeah,
That's
well,
fair.
you know.
I get dropped down more than you do, though.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, true. So anyway, doing Lady and the Tramp next week, guys. We've got some gaps coming up because since there's not a lot new coming out because of the writer's strike and the actor's strike, we're going to need some suggestions. We have about the next 3 or 4 weeks planned out, but really March and April are fairly open at the moment. So we need some suggestions. Please give us suggestions at plusplatoon@gmail.com. Send us a carrier pigeon if you want to. We've had several messages on Facebook. That's a great way to get in touch with us, and we respond to all of them. We have new episodes coming out every Thursday on YouTube and all the major podcasting services. For Kate, Pete, and Steve, we will see everyone next week. Bye, guys.
Thanks for watching this week's episode of the Plus Platoon. Be sure to subscribe to the Plus Platoon podcast to keep getting great content each week. Then head over to Apple Podcasts and leave those 5-star reviews as they help make the Plus Platoon visible to even more Disney Plus fans. Also, go to YouTube and like and subscribe to the Plus Platoon channel, where you can watch all future episodes live. If you have a question for the Plus Platoon, please send us an email to plusplatoon@gmail.com or connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @PlusPlatoon.
The Plus Platoon is a Disney Plus fan podcast and is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company or the Disney Plus streaming service. All opinions expressed on the show are solely those of the individual hosts and in no way reflect the views of the Walt Disney Company.
Thanks for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for next week's episode because the Plus Platoon is to be continued.